A dangerous way to live is to be too busy to realize that you are busy. A dangerous way to live is to be too busy to realize you are busy. Now, as I'm sharing that, if I can try to give you a visual to make this clearer, imagine driving a car so fast that you don't realize the brakes won't work. That would be a terrifying circumstance to be in. When we are in satsanga, we automatically slow down. Even as I'm speaking slowly.
Check.
So we slow down. And what is triggered when we slow down is we're able to step back. Correct? They say, take time and smell the roses. If you slow down, you can step back. That's better. Sure. This is okay.
Then we can stay with this.
Yeah, please. When this stops working, we'll use that one.
I'll turn the power off.
In satsanga, we slow down, which enables us to step back, which then triggers us to be able to see more. If you take a step back from your lawn, you can see more of your lawn. Yes? This is the beauty, this is the efficiency of satsanga. Being here, you have to slow down. And now Puja Swami Tejomayananda has shared, there are 3 types of people who come to satsang. One is the shrota. Can you tell me in English what shrota sounds like? A listener. Another is a sarota. A sarota is a nutcracker. Have you seen those back in the day when you had walnuts and you'd crack them and eat them? When a teacher is teaching, I don't believe that. He's wrong. Prove it. So you have the shrota, the sarota. Can you tell me what the third type is? Sota. The sota is the one who comes to sleep. And my point, again, is we're not used to slowing down. The only time we slow down is to sleep, so that when we're forced to slow down, like in satsanga, we're not oriented towards this, so we go into sota. That should be your own personal check about if you are living in such a busy way that you don't know how busy you are. And sharing one more insight from Puja Swami Tejomayananda, when one lives in a busy way, one has a rich body and a poor mind. If we analyze our personalities, a rich body means we have lots of things outside, but a poor mind, we don't have so many things inside. My appreciation to all of you for being in satsanga. It's Monday night in July, there's no need for you to be here, but you do feel the need, which is why you're here, and that's what I'm appreciating. And because you're in satsanga, I get to be in satsanga also. We are going to immerse ourselves in a workshop. This is not a discourse. This is not story time. This is a workshop where we are going to work on our minds. And the format we will flow through over the next 4 evenings is 3D. The first 30 minutes will be discourse. I will try to share with you. The next 30 minutes will be a discussion. You will share with each other. And the final 30 minutes will be a dialogue where you will share with me. Now that's an awesome system of really churning, correct? Me to you, you to you, you to me. Many of us know the story of the Kshirasagara Mantana, the churning of the Milky Ocean. Where do you think that Milky Ocean is? In the Bangkok airport. They have a mural of it, correct? That Milky Ocean is our personality, our mind. So we will churn. Our workshop, and I also many times have forgotten what I'm supposed to speak on during these 4 days. Our workshop will be about 4 rights. R-I-G-H-T. 4 rights. Right actions will be the focus today. I won't tell you about the other rights so that you come. So today will be right actions. But I was trying to visualize this in my mind. If you make 4 rights, suppose you're driving and you make 4 rights, where are you? Where you started. That's a beautiful thought. If we connect this to the Bhagavad Gita, for the entire first chapter and some of the second chapter, Prince Arjuna doesn't want to be where he is. And Bhagavan doesn't allow him to leave. He really guided him through 4 rights. You have to be where you are and find what you're seeking. One more general insight before we get into the subject proper. I was recently asking a group of seekers what they're addicted to. Shall I ask you? What are you addicted to? Cell phone, I heard, yes. That's why in our high school camp, as soon as they check in, they have to leave their cell phones. This is like rehab for them. It's like detox. What else are you addicted to? Talking. But the one I'm trying to point out is Shravana. We are addicted to Shravana, and what I mean by this is we feel Shravana is enough. And when I feel that's enough, what don't I do then? Manana. And so I'm challenging all of you, and that's why this is designed as a workshop. Shravana is for the mind. It is necessary, but manana is for the intellect. And the most powerful part of you is not the mind. The most powerful part of you is the intellect. Prince Arjuna is the mind. Sri Krishna is the intellect. So during this workshop, reflect. And a great way to do that is to write. Write what you're feeling. Write your questions. I have so many notebooks where I write what I'm thinking, write what I'm feeling. This will help us to personalize this. Okay. What is the difference between karma and karma yoga? Please shout out what you think the difference is between karma and karma yoga. Sure. One is just work and one is where your mind and intellect are also working. Good? Anyone else? Sure. Action versus selfless action. You're the wrong group to ask. You obviously know the answer. But usually, when someone is asked the difference between karma and karma yoga, they zoom into yoga, and what society tells us is yoga is poses. Right? It's literally called poses. I remember when I was growing up, I had to pose for my family photograph, for my school picture, and it's never real, correct? Do I always look like that in my pose? So that's what we know about yoga, and where this happens is studios. Yes, that's where you have these poses. when one's idea of yoga is so shallow, they do not want to change. Because in our immersion in yoga, the first two parts of yoga are yamas and niyamas. What does yama mean? Don'ts. And niyama? Do's. Nobody wants to be told, don't do this and do this. Nobody wants to follow through with don'ts and do's. If you don't believe me, join our high school camp tomorrow morning. And this will become very clear to you. This is our notion of yoga, but there is great danger in this also, because if you don't follow through with the yamas and niyamas, what do you fail to reach? Samadhi. One fails to reach egolessness. Yoga is intention. Yoga is intention. Karma, implementation. Karma yoga, there is intention in this implementation. For a lot of us, as our responsibilities have grown in life, if you can go back to when you were in high school, then college, then working, perhaps married, first child, etc., your responsibilities increased. Agreed? So you had to implement more. But what I've observed is, as our responsibilities increase, we have to implement more, we don't match it up with more intention. We become people who are always implementing without that intention. So we study Karma Yoga. We know the definition of Karma Yoga, but whether we're actually following through is quite different. That's why this opportunity to slow down is precious. Yoga is intention. And one of the most effective ways to understand yoga, to understand intention, is the Bhagavad Gita. In Bhagavad Gita's chapter 1, if you can define this entire chapter in one word, in one English word, what would it be? Anyone? Delusion, sure. Fear, that's better. Chapter 1, the feeling that comes with this is fear. Duryodhana's afraid. Prince Arjuna is definitely afraid. Shri Krishna is afraid that Prince Arjuna is going to go on and on and on. He's also afraid. It is fear. And I'm consciously using the word fear and not delusion, because think to yourself, when was the last time you used the word delusion outside of Chinmaya Somnath? That's a poor association, okay? Somnath delusion. But my point is, it's just a word to us. And that's why fear, we may not say fear, but we definitely know what fear feels like. Chapter 1. Chapter 2. If chapter 1 is the symptom, there has to be a source for this symptom. Tell me what the feeling of chapter 2 would be. If fear is the symptom, what do you think the source or cause of that fear is? This is shared in chapter 2. I heard attachment. Anyone else? Reflect. It is selfishness. Selfishness. If you're around someone who's afraid, if you're around someone who's insecure, it is because they're selfish. Now, when we think of selfishness, we typically think of this in a very possessive way, like this is my book and this is my space and I get to eat chapati first. But selfishness is where one thinks the whole world revolves around themselves. So the more selfish one is, the more insecure, the more afraid one will be. Everyone's with me? The symptom is fear. The source is selfishness. Now we go to chapter 3. this is where the solution starts to be introduced. If selfishness is the source, what do you think the solution is? Selflessness. Whoa. And so, in our workshop on right actions, beginning with this, we are going to chapter 3. In chapter 3, selflessness is introduced. It keeps on getting magnified, and I'll explain that in time. I'm rewinding one more time before we get into our verse proper. When you are in satsanga, what are you forced to do? Slow down. And there is great utility in slowing down. Why are we slowing down? So that we're checking ourselves between karma and karma yoga. What is the difference? Intention. The Bhagavad Gita is a beautiful map, a beautiful science on getting to know our intention. How chapter 3 is built up, we do feel insecurity. Why? We think it's because we're not strong enough in terms of muscle, we're not rich enough in terms of our accounts. But it's much deeper than that. We feel that the world revolves around us. Let me give you a personal expression of this. In 2010, the Chinmaya Mahasamadhi camp was organized by Los Angeles. And I had arrived a day earlier because I know that Puja Swami Tejramayana comes early. So it's intimate satsang with him. And so I'm sitting in a room with 150 people, the people who had organized the forthcoming camp. And Puja Swami Tejramayana walks in, he sits down, and he looks to Swami Ishwarananda and says, "What do you want me to speak on?" And Swami Ishwarananda said, "Seva." And the first statement that Puja Swami Tejramayana shared. And remember, these are people who have worked hard for this forthcoming camp. And he said, "No one is indispensable." See how we put everyone right in their place. No one is indispensable. Why did you organize this camp? For you to not be selfish, but rather to be selfless. But if you think, look at what I've done, and so what comes with doership is deservership, there this master shares, no one is indispensable. And I've heard him casually share, the world would be better if you're not there. It will go on more beautifully. In chapter 3, when it comes to right actions, we will reference verse 8. 3:8. I'll chant this, and you can refer to this another time in your own way. Niyatam kuru karma tvam karma jayo hya karmanaha sharira yatra pichate na prasiddhayeda karmanaha. Shri Krishna shares, I'm going to read the translation. Many of you have already studied this. My orientation will be, how do we practice this? How do we come out of implementation and tune into intention? Here's the translation. You perform your bounden duty. For action is superior to inaction. Even the maintenance of the body would not be possible for you by inaction. Okay? Niyatam kuru karma tvam. Follow your responsibilities. Karma jayo hya karmanaha. Action is superior to inaction. Sharira yatra pichate. Even the maintenance of this body is not possible with inaction. Na prasiddhayet akarmanaha. One can't be successful. One can't evolve through inaction. Okay. This is the translation. Again, I'm going to be focusing on how do we use this. What Bhagavan Krishna is sharing in this verse is, it is the ego that facilitates action. The ego facilitates action. And a good example of this is when you're sleeping and you are having a nightmare and you happen to kick out your leg and whoever you're sleeping beside, suppose it's your sister or your spouse, and you kick them. Should they kick you back? They will, but should they kick you back? See, you're sleeping, you're dreaming, your ego is not functioning in that circumstance, so that's not an action. Not an action. But right now, if you kick the person in front of you, they may not kick you back, but mentally they will. Correct? Because you're doing it with your ego. It is the ego that facilitates action. Knowing that, what Bhagavan Krishna is sharing here is the panchakarmas. Panchakarma in English means the right actions. Each day, I'm going to give you a framework of 5. Each day. Today, panchakarma. I'm going to take you through what these 5 actions are, from 5 to 1, keeping in mind these actions are based on the ego. Are you with me? Here's number 5. In Sanskrit, prayaschitta karma. Prayaschitta karma. How many of you have heard of this word before? Tell me what it means in English. What does it mean in English? Penance, repentance, yes, yes. Sounds very prison-like, yes? A penitentiary and so on. We'll lighten this word to rehabilitation actions. Rehabilitation actions. Prayaschitta karma, rehabilitation actions. When one does that which is wrong, if one doesn't rehabilitate themselves, what will happen? One will do wrong again and again and again. So the 5th karma is prayaschitta karma, which means rehabilitation actions. The more intense your rehabilitation, the more impressive it will be, meaning the more of an impression it will leave on you. Now let me give you an example. How many of you feel you struggle with jealousy? By show of hands, you struggle with jealousy. Okay. Imagine you're jealous of the person next to you, and you have to admit to them that you're jealous of them for this and this and this reason. Will you do it? Will you tell them what you're jealous of? You're saying yes, but you know you. Okay, do it. See, my point here is that to express what you're jealous about is intense. And so you will be much more careful about what you're jealous of then, yes? Like when you're in the company of a master, they can see what's in your mind. And that's why when you're in the presence of a master, just be quiet. For their safety and your safety. See, but we don't live like that generally, right? I could be sitting in front of you and thinking so many bad things about you. So if you feel you've done that which is wrong, your rehabilitation should be intense. What does Bhishma mean? When you read Amar Chitakata, what is Bhishma defined as? Terrible, correct? Bhishma means intense. He's not terrible. Kamsa is terrible. Bhishma is impressive. Bhishma is inspiring. Number 5. Number 4, Nishiddha karma. Nishiddha karma. What does Nishiddha mean in English? Prohibited, yes. Like TSA prohibits these things, so that's Nishiddha karma, yes. Don't bring firecrackers onto the plane. What else does Nishiddha mean? Think practically. wrong, yes, but then we're more like science, this is wrong, math, this is right. Immoral actions. Immoral actions. We are focused on how to be intentional. Our ego makes us unintentional, because if you are intentional, you are fighting the ego back. If you're unintentional, the ego is fighting you forward in the sense of one is devolving. So we have to understand our actions in a deep way. Prayaschitta karma, now nishiddha karma. It is a immoral action. The difference between immorality and legality is significant. I haven't been to Las Vegas for a long time, but I have heard that prostitution is legal in Las Vegas, I am told. So, according to the US government or the state of Nevada, prostitution is not nishiddha karma, correct? But for you being a seeker, prostitution, even to see a pamphlet that they may hand out on the street, you feel dirty because of it. You feel impure because of it. It would be immoral, correct? Now I'm going to extend this point further. As you evolve as a seeker, your range of immorality should grow. Make sense? If I'm immature, this is what's immoral. But if I evolve to be an intense seeker, this is what should be immoral. It makes me much more careful. And I'll give you a reference to this. In the Ramayana, one of the final teachings is this beautiful dialogue where 6 questions are asked and answered. It's like a valedictory address. And one of the questions is, what is the greatest papa? Papa meaning sin or demerit. What do you think the answer is? What is the greatest papa? Good, yes, so many of you remember, because you do it, I know. Gossip. Gossip is the greatest papa. See, we're all thinking killing people, stealing things. I know a lot of you haven't killed anyone. If you steal things, it's intellectually, you do. Physically, you don't. But it's gossip. And I feel that we do this and justify this like it's our job to judge others. My wife and I, Sheila and I, we don't even talk about our children in front of them. Because then they're just going to get into the habit of talking about other people. I've observed this so strongly in my teaching, in my traveling, that when younger people are in charge of those who are even younger, they don't understand how dangerous gossip is to them and to whom they're gossiping about. See that immorality? For most people, gossip is not immoral. But if you're a seeker, gossip is the greatest papa. Number 3. Tell me what's number 3 in this panchakarma. Kamya karma. You have been studying Bhagavad Gita for decades. I know you have. I've been coming here for 15 years. Kamya karma. And I'm not sharing this to make anyone feel bad. I'm sharing this to show how a lot of this is, we know it, but we don't know it. See, that's what's so beautiful about a sacred science. If you don't follow it, it means you don't know it. With the secular science, if you know it and don't follow it, no problem. It still works, but not in a sacred science. I was telling our high school students, this is not your high school class that you go to in terms of a public school or private school. They were telling me that during class they're using their phones, they're talking. I said I will have 0 tolerance for this. This is a sacred school. We're immersed in a sacred science. So if you like it, stay. If you don't like it, leave. I said that multiple times today. If this doesn't work for you, Please go to your public high school. This is our sacred high school. My wife and I, we had once taken emergency first aid training. We're in public settings. If something happens, we want to help. So at one point, the instructor is telling us about how high blood pressure is a silent killer. And he's telling us that this causes high blood pressure and that causes high blood pressure. These are long days of training. So after around 2 hours, we get a break. So Sheila and I go outside, and our instructor is there. What's he doing outside? Enjoying his cigarette that he just told us not to do. He's outside enjoying his cigarette. But my point is, he gets paid to do that. He doesn't have to follow it. But here, if you don't follow, it means you don't know. And that's why these workshops are important, to check ourselves. Kamya karma. In English, selfish actions. Selfish actions. Now, you know the definition of selfish. I will add a reflection point here. A selfish action is when you do something because you feel you're supposed to do it. Yes, I'm supposed to go to college. After college, what are you supposed to do? I'm supposed to get a corporate job. After your corporate job, what are you supposed to do? I'm supposed to get a mortgage. After a mortgage, I'm supposed to get married. Now, just think about that. My wife and I have been married for almost 13 years. Imagine I told her on our anniversary, I was just supposed to get married to you. See the selfishness in that? It's unintentional. You're doing it for you. And now, what happens when you live by I'm supposed to, as soon as that's completed, what do you feel like? Tell me, what do you feel like when I'm supposed to is completed? I heard tired, disappointed. You feel like, what next? I got this job, what next? I've been on this vacation, what next? What next is an awful feeling, isn't it? You worked so hard for this and now don't feel complete. That would be kamya karma, where you think that this will complete you, but it won't. Rehabilitation actions is 5, immoral actions is 4, selfish actions is 3. Number 2 is naimittika karma. Naimittika karma, but there's a beautiful transition here. It is no longer an action, it is a special responsibility. Not an action anymore, but a responsibility. Tell me, what is the difference between an action and a responsibility? The yoga has kicked in. The intention is now infused, which means the ego is being fought. Until then, the ego wasn't being fought. Now the ego is being fought. This Bhagavad Gita did happen historically, but it's also happening perpetually. A naimittika karma, or special responsibility, would be like, if I can give you a worldly example, the next one, just for your references, regular responsibility. Your regular responsibility is to brush your teeth at least twice a day. So then what is your naimittika karma? Flossing, right? It should be your regular responsibility, but for us, we've made it our special responsibility. When do you floss? Before you go see the dentist. You may as well not. They'll do it for you. You're paying them. But you see my point that you have your regular responsibilities, but there's special responsibilities also. And for some of us who are quite rigid in our lifestyle and thinking, how do you know that you're tuned into this special responsibility? You're adaptable. Adaptable. If your flight is delayed because of weather reasons, if you're not shaken because of that, naimittika karma. You're adapting that this is a special responsibility. What are you supposed to do? This last weekend, that is July 21st to the 23rd, I was supposed to be in Niagara Falls. And I was only supposed to be with our younger son, who is very easy to parent. And my wife was supposed to go camping with our older son. And my wife's uncle had passed away 2 weeks ago, so the rituals happened to be this weekend in Cleveland. Now, simultaneous to this weekend, I had planned a silence retreat, which means every 3 hours I had to teach online and fly to Washington, D.C. yesterday. And so my point in all of this is, it was a very grueling weekend. Niagara Falls, Cleveland, Niagara Falls, Washington, D.C., family rituals, silence retreat, and so on. But that's a naimittika karma. For her, if it's for her, then it's for me. If it's for me, it's for our kids. So if you ever feel that your schedule is shaken and you're shaken, more intention is needed with your special responsibilities. And number one, what's number one? Nitya karma. Nitya karma in English means regular responsibilities. This is your key to growing out of selfishness and growing into selflessness, is your regular responsibilities. Every one of us has been given a custom designed circumstance for our evolution. If you have knee problems, you're supposed to have knee problems. If your sister is very easy to get along with, it's supposed to be like that. If your sister is very not easy to get along with, that's for you to evolve through this regular responsibility. Please think about that everything that happens in your life is for you. Because we love Bhagwan, because Bhagwan's nature is love, where do you think this circumstance came from? If Bhagwan's nature is love, anything that comes from Bhagwan is also with love. And so the circumstances in our life, to treat this is my responsibility. And now a couple of more thoughts towards this. How do you know if you're treating your responsibility as nitya karma? How do you know? Please give me some measurements or gauges. You don't complain. Very good. I'll start working with that. You don't complain, you don't blame, and you don't annotate. Annotate means you make an excuse for yourself. And I'll share it in one more way because lots of our high schoolers or students are here. Annotation is where you feel you're an exception. When you feel you're an exception, it stops you from being exceptional. You don't complain, blame, or annotate. In our youth camps, I'm very particular not to express any sort of favoritism. When someone wants to do this because they know me, or someone wants to do that because I'm staying at their home, and I'm very direct, the answer is no. Because there can't be that this person's an exception, because if this person is, how does that person feel then? They don't feel like that, then what kind of job am I doing? I'm making them more insecure rather than more secure. So that's one way you know you're treating your life as your responsibility. One more, the way that you know you're following your nitya karma. You are in a self-reward system. When you do what you do, where do you get your reward from? From you. It's your own quietude of mind. It's your own good health. But for a lot of us, even a lot of us who know karma yoga and are engaged in seva, I feel so much of our attention is on ROI. All of those who study finance, what does ROI mean? Return on investment. I do this because I want this. ROI in this field is recognition, ovation, and most subtle is inclusion. Inclusion, that I'm doing this because I want to feel included. You know what happens when you live like that? Everything you do to be liked. What happens to you if you do things to be liked? You stop liking yourself. You become very inauthentic and shallow then. Do you agree? But when you don't live to be liked, you like yourself more. So many of us have studied the term vairagya, which means not to have likes. A most practical way to follow vairagya is not to live to be liked. Then you will be authentic, you will be deep. We are in a workshop. We don't know what the title of this workshop is. You think something, I said something, I was introduced in a different way. We don't know. In this workshop, we're beginning to focus on right actions. 4 rights are coming. We've taken our first right actions. We're going from the least right action to the most right action, correct? What was 5 in English? Rehabilitation actions. And number 4 in English? Immoral actions. 3, selfish actions. 2, special responsibilities. And number 1, regular responsibilities. This is just the beginning. There's three more rights that we have to engage in. Here's my final thought before we get into our discussion. Acharya Shankara shares in Moha Mudgara, or Bhajagovindam, artha, anartha. When your meaning in life is artha, meaning it's external, it is some sort of pleasure or possession or position, you will feel anartha, you will feel this is meaningless. If I am living where my dependence is external, I will feel lost. Today, a high school student was asking me, did you go to the Vedanta course to be a teacher? And I laughed when she asked me that. And I shared, I only went to the Vedanta course because I was feeling anartha. I had finished business school, I was engaged in commercial real estate, but there was no meaning to what I was doing. I felt I was highly disposable. If I don't do it, 1,000 other people will do it. And so I couldn't live like this. And so I moved to the ashram and I found artha, not outside. I didn't go to become a teacher. I went there as a loner. I didn't make any friends. I didn't talk to anyone. I went there for myself, but found that artha. And that's why I love what I do, and I think I love myself also. In the Bhagavad Gita, when one completes chapter 3, the theme of chapter 4 is to engage in selflessness without deservership. There's more of an intensity about how one is to be intentional. Chapter 5, there's more intensity. I will share more with you as the evenings go on. Oh.